So I'm here to talk about X-Men: The Last Stand, and wait, can you hear that? You can hear the torches and the pitchforks just arming up. X-Men: The Last Stand is directed by Brett Ratner, no longer Bryan Singer, written by Simon Kinberg and Zach Penn, and stars everyone again from the first two movies, namely Hugh Jackman, Patrick Stewart, Ian McKellen. This time, Famke Janssen has, a meteor role. So in X-Men: The Last Stand, they have developed a cure to suppress the mutant gene, and the government is releasing it as a voluntary kind of thing for mutants. Like if you don't want your powers anymore, take a shot and they're gone. However, Magneto obviously is very, very angry about this, and he begins amassing this huge army of mutants to, go to Alcatraz and just destroy the cure forever. And meanwhile, with the X-Men, they discover that Jean Grey is alive, and it's kind of a spoiler for what happens at the end of X2, but whatever. But not only is Jean Grey alive, something is happening to her, and she starts calling herself the Phoenix, and it turns out she's really, really powerful and unstoppable. Now, the first thing people talk about when X-Men: The Last Stand comes up is that people hate it. Like people absolutely hate this movie, and it's almost funny to me, like how as soon as someone mentions it, like there's gonna be like people puking and throwing things everywhere. And I can actually kind of understand why people don't like it. I mean, departing from Bryan Singer's style and care for the characters and stuff, the way they apparently did not do justice to the Dark Phoenix saga, stuff like that. However, I'm coming from a point of view where I have never ever read the comics for the X-Men. Like I know next to nothing about the Dark Phoenix saga, so I went in this movie not knowing anything and taking it in as a movie, and I will say that I do not think it's bad at all. By no means do I think it's a good movie either, but I think it just gets way too much hate, like really. In fact, even if I did read the comics, I consider myself kind of good at separating my opinion on original source material from, the interpretation of the filmmakers. And seeing this and judging it as a movie, I think it's okay. I do think there are lots of good points for this movie. For one, I think the visual effects are fantastic. Like this was shot in 2006, and it still holds up today. The coolest thing with the visual effects here are that again, the filmmakers have tons of things to play with, tons of little mutant powers to play with. Like there are even more mutants here than in X2. Most notable here are the visual effects that go into Phoenix's powers. Like when she attacks people, she shreds them to pieces, and she literally shreds them to pieces here. They just kind of like disintegrate, and it's fantastic to look at. Also, again, the most like underrated component of filmmaking, in my opinion at least, is makeup, and the makeup here is great. Again, going back to Phoenix, like when she goes into Phoenix mode, like just the tiny little makeup things they do with her face and veins popping out and stuff. It looks really cool. And also Beast. Beast looks great. I mean, like there's tons of blue skin characters in the X-Men universe, but the makeup on Beast, it really looks like this guy has blue skin, and blue hair and stuff. It just looks really good. Now, one thing I like with The Last Stand, which I'm sure a lot of people, especially the comic book fans, don't like, I like the plot, like I just like how they combine two different comics. Like I know that much that they combine the Gifted storyline about the kid who is the cause for the mutant cure with the whole Dark Phoenix saga. And obviously, you can't explain both of those plots completely in the span of one movie, but I liked how the two came together. I thought it fit pretty well, and it added like lots of layers to stuff. It made things feel more at stake. Also, it really just feels like a natural progression from the first X-Men movies. Like this entire time, Magneto just really wants to fight a war. And his brotherhood in the first X-Men was really, really pathetic. He didn't really have a brotherhood in X2, but now he gets the army he wanted. He gets the war he wanted. And in terms of the humans' reaction to the mutants, it feels natural. Also, like in X-Men, they don't really care that much. I mean, there's like one politician making a fuss about it, but you don't really hear that much from the human side. In X2, that's when, Stryker comes out and he's all anti-mutant, stuff like that. In X-Men: The Last Stand, it really feels like they're humans trying to work for a peaceful solution, the cure thing. In terms of dialogue, like the X-Men dialogue for me has always been good with cheesy dialogue, and there are cheesy lines here. Everyone's gonna make fun of how the Juggernaut spoke, but let's be honest, like I am the Juggernaut bitch is still a better line than what happens to a toad when it's struck by lightning, as in that line was terrible. Now I really don't want to call this movie terrible. Like I can't find it in myself to call this movie terrible, because for me when you call a movie terrible, that means like there's absolutely no redeeming quality to it. And And for me, there are lots of redeeming qualities about The Last Stand. One thing that is definitely redeemable is the acting. And if you're gonna call this movie terrible, I think that's kind of a bad thing to say when their actors this good in the movie. It's like you kind of disregard their performances, and their performances are great. I mean, like obviously Hugh Jackman is always gonna be great as Wolverine. Patrick Stewart is always going to be great as Professor X. Anna Paquin has a much smaller role here as a rogue, but she plays it well. Rebecca Romaine, surprisingly, as Mystique, is kind of got better from her first two movies. James Marsden again has such a tiny role, but he plays it really really well. And Kelsey Grammer is beast. Come on, he really lived that blue fur. I do have to give shout out performances. I have to really single out the performances of Famke Janssen and Ian McKellen. Famke Janssen as Phoenix, you can really tell she is not exactly well. She has that bit of Jean Grey in her, but you can really see the personalities fighting. And when she goes Phoenix mode, she's just really really scary. So it's fun to see a character we knew and loved in the first two movies be so frightening here. And I just rewatched X Men: The Last Stand for this review, and I concluded that Magneto is my favorite part of this movie. Ian McKellen kills it as Magneto every single time, and here I think it's his best performance of Magneto because you can see how he feels about Charles Xavier. Even if they're on completely different sides this time, I mean, he's really starting a war, and Xavier really doesn't want that. You can tell that Magneto respects this guy so much, and if people badmouth Xavier, he'll be there to tell them, no, look, he did so much more for you than you'll ever know. However, now we get to the problems about this movie, and I'm not defending this movie, I'm not saying it's good. Again, I think it's just okay. There are lots of problems with this movie also. For one, if X2 was a bit too long, this movie goes by a bit too fast, and it's just a bit too fast paced. They never linger on certain moments that could be poignant or meaningful. One thing that I really really did not like, and you guys know that I don't like bad endings or rushed endings, that I feel like the denouement, the untying of the knot at the end, it doesn't really happen. There is no moment where the characters reflect on the huge things that just happened. It just kind of ends. The biggest problem by far though is how this movie dealt with the characters, and I actually wrote a list down here of all my problems with the characters. I'm just gonna kind of go through them quickly. For one, I refuse to believe that Logan does not really care anymore about his past. I really thought that at the end of X2, we would still explore Logan's origins, and instead we just do not at all, and it doesn't really feel like he has much of an arc except for Jean Grey. I have a problem with Storm, and I still think she's bland. They give her so much screen time in this movie, but from X Men 1 to The Last Stand, she's still a bland character, I'm sorry. Angel is completely wasted in this movie. They set him up so nicely, and then they go absolutely nowhere with him. I liked how they portrayed Beast. I just thought they could have shown him more in office working with humans because that's such a huge, rich kind of thing where you could show how mutants are relating with humans in a positive way, and they don't really dig into that. The Iceman Shadowcat Rogue love triangle thing is completely unnecessary. I don't understand why it's there. They also wasted the character of Rogue. She was such an important part of the first X-Men. She had a prominent role in X2, and here they just completely throw her away. There's no reason for Iceman to suddenly have this relationship with Kitty Pryde when they already had things going on with him and Rogue, and it's just weird. It's fun to see Pyro in there, and it's fun to see him have a rivalry with Iceman. It's just that he had such a better defined character in X2 that I did feel again his character was wasted here. Only Professor X, Cyclops, Magneto, Mystique, and Phoenix have really kind of defined arcs in this movie, and even if some of them get really short screen time, I still like how it feels like they completed their story. And finally, Brett Ratner's directing. Now, say what you will about his movies, yeah, he hasn't really come up with anything that great, but I still do think he directs the action in this movie very very well, especially the last big set piece at Alcatraz is really really fun to watch, but it really does feel like he let the story just kind of go on its way. He didn't really, take responsibility to craft character moments out of the script. It just really did feel like it's more focused on action and stuff. And there was never any moment, any big character moment that wasn't accompanied by, visual effects. He really just relied on the action and the VFX so much that he didn't really allow his actors and the writing to just shine. And in the end, again, I will say that X-Men: The Last Stand is just an okay movie. I never ever thought that it would be this reviled and and treated so badly. I really don't think it deserves that much hate because it's not a terrible movie. Because in the end, I still find it watchable. It's still entertaining. But the thing is, when you have a comic book movie, you apparently have to give it justice, or else everyone's gonna call it terrible. Just look at this movie, as an action movie, and it's fine. But you know what? Before you guys start hurling your pitchforks at me, I completely understand though why you would hate this movie because tracing the arc of the characters from the first X-Men to here, it really kind of just falls off a cliff. But anyway, that is my review of X-Men: The Last Stand. Have you guys seen it? What did you think about it? Whether you loved it, I doubt it, but whether you hated it or loved it, whatever you thought, whether you agree with me or not, please leave me a comment and let's have a conversation.